An Israeli airstrike on central Beirut has killed Hezbollah's chief spokesman, according to a Hezbollah official. Now, earlier officials said Israeli strikes killed at least 12 people in Gaza. Israel also bombed several buildings in Beirut's southern suburbs, where Hezbollah has long been headquartered, after warning people to evacuate. This comes as Lebanese officials are considering a U.S.-led ceasefire proposal. Lebanon's prime minister has asked Iran to help secure a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hezbollah, and appeared to urge it to convince the militant group to agree to a deal that could require it to pull back from the Israel-Lebanon border. Meanwhile, Israeli police arrested 3 suspects after 2 flares were fired overnight at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's private residence. According to authorities, Netanyahu and his family were not there. Police did not provide details about the suspects, but officials pointed to domestic political critics of Netanyahu. To discuss all of these developments further, I do want to bring in Alex Trayman, the CEO and Jerusalem bureau chief of JNS. And Jonathan, Alex, rather, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Appreciate it.
Stephanie, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I do want to start off with the death of Hezbollah's chief spokesperson. How significant is this?
Well, we see that the IDF has continued to target Hezbollah's leadership. The only way that you're going to get to a victory in the war is if the top leadership has been taken out. Israel's already taken out Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, the number 2, Fuad Shukr, and several others. So Israel continues to target the top leaders. They also have targeted the mid-level commanders and the beepers and the walkie-talkie explosions that took place. They're also pushing up from the southern border with Israel, creating a buffer zone and making it that Hezbollah will have a much harder time attacking Israel.
So when it comes to the momentum with Israel fighting against Hezbollah, where has that momentum gone?
Well, I think that Israel has most of the momentum. It was believed before this war began that Hezbollah could overrun Israel with long-range rockets, with rockets that had very heavy payloads, with rockets that were precision-guided, and the fear was that they could overrun the Israeli air defense systems. And while they are striking inside Israel, and Israel doesn't have 100% answers for everything that Hezbollah is firing, we do see that Israel has taken out not just the top level of the Hezbollah command, but also a large percentage of the long-range rockets, the launchers for these rockets, and their ability to deliver rockets and missiles that Israel has been severely reduced. So Israel does have most of the momentum. The amount of damage that Hezbollah is able to do inside Israel is much less than was previously feared.
And speaking of momentum, you know, we've been hearing a lot with Hezbollah, but what about Hamas? Where does the conflict stand with Israel and Hamas right now?
Well, Israel continues to double back into areas that it had at one point conquered and cleared of terrorist organizations, and they have now reestablished bases of operation. As Israel took out the 18 to 19 of the 24, 25 organized battalions of Hamas. Well, what that means is that 50% of that battalion is either neutralized or dead. So that leaves a lot of terrorists in place, and they've been able to reorganize, and they've gone back into northern areas that Israel had already cleared out. So Israel continues to clean up the damage once again and go back into these towns. But by and large, Israel's been very efficient and very effective throughout this strike, and the amount of rockets that Hamas is able to fire at Israel has been tremendously reduced. So, you know, Israel has almost a complete victory inside Gaza. The one main remaining outstanding issue, of course, is the 101 hostages that are still missing.
And speaking of that, there is a U.S.-led ceasefire proposal. We have seen time and time again negotiations stall and fall apart. The latest round of these discussions, how realistic are they?
Well, you know, I don't think that there's a tremendous sense of optimism at this point. We have to wait and see. I think that there will probably be a better chance to get the hostages back once the administrations in the United States change. I think that the Trump administration may be willing to put much more leverage against Hamas, much more leverage against Qatar. You might see the Trump administration, for example, doing a back U-turn on the Biden administration's demands for humanitarian aid inside Gaza. They might say, hey, do you want to continue to get humanitarian aid? Well, the only way that's going to happen is if hostages come home.
And we've seen the friction between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu having met with President-elect Trump previously when he visited the United States. When it comes to forging that relationship, as we do look ahead to January 20th, what is on the agenda there?
Well, I think you're going to start to see a resetting of the policy. President Trump has already said on day one he's going to stop the slow walking of weaponry that the United States otherwise would have given Israel earlier in the conflict, that he's going to make sure that Israel has all the weapons that it's supposed to have in order to win. And I think that you're going to see a lot more leverage. We've already seen Iran withhold what was supposed to be or rumored to be a third ballistic missile attack that was going to be either in the days leading up to on the day of the U.S. election. They've already since said that they're not going to attack at this time. So the fear of a U.S. military strike on Iran, which will become much more real under a Trump administration, is changing the paradigm here in the Middle East. And I think that Israel is going to start in the coming weeks to more clearly elaborate what total victory means in this war. Anybody that's pushing for a ceasefire before Hamas is completely taken out, before Hezbollah is completely taken out, is almost guaranteeing that there's going to be a future round of conflict in the next months and years ahead. It's only going to be a total victory that's going to protect the Middle East and make the Middle East safe for the next several decades.
And you were talking about changing the paradigm when it comes to shifting the trajectory. No doubt Iran is reassessing, especially now that Trump has won the presidency. When it comes to Iran and, again, inching towards nuclear capability and using its proxies, such as the Houthi rebels, Hezbollah, Hamas, to attack Israel, how might that change the trajectory when it comes to a Trump presidency? Might they pull back? Are they going to maybe put a pause? What might this look like?
Sure, Iran is going to demonstrate if they feel that the United States is ready to take them out, is ready to take out their nuclear facilities, that they can behave, and they might try to even race toward some kind of a ceasefire agreement, not just between them and Israel directly, but with the proxies. They may have the Houthis stop hijacking ships and controlling the commercial waterways of the Red Sea. They might have Hezbollah race into some kind of a ceasefire agreement with Israel. I think it's going to be up to Israel to actually determine what it wants at this point. And I think that as far as Israel is concerned, they want to make sure that Hezbollah not only stops firing, but is no longer a military force inside Lebanon, that is not anywhere near the Israeli border in southern Lebanon, and even should go as far as demanding to expel Hezbollah from the Lebanese parliament. The same thing in Gaza with Hamas. These two terror organizations should not be anywhere near the Israeli border, should not pose any threat to Israel for decades to come. I think that Israel should continue to penetrate deep inside Lebanese territory until they feel that that's possible.
Alex, is there anything else that you're keeping a very close eye on?
Well, we're looking at the resetting of relations between Israel and the United States. We're seeing also that there are talks about a ceasefire in Lebanon, and even that Israel has been negotiating with the United States toward a ceasefire in Lebanon. The one party that's not been a part of that negotiations has been Hezbollah. So I think that you see here as a strategy for Israel of trying to run out the clock on the Biden administration and to hopefully get toward January 20th, where there's a new administration in town and where Israel can more clearly elaborate what its goals are to end the war, to end it peacefully, and then not only to end the war, but to actually move towards these normalization agreements that had been stalled once the Biden administration came into office, potentially peace with Saudi Arabia and several other countries that might even include at some point Iraq, Iran, and Lebanon.
All right, Alex, as always, we do appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me.